What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TOJ Talks. I'm your host, Will Parkinson, at WillPow11 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Will Parkinson NFL on YouTube. Hope everybody's had a great week. Obviously, it's been a strong Jets week in terms of the Mike Williams signing, in terms of Jadeveon Clowney visiting. The Jets always obviously in the news, and a second week of free agency. That if you go Friday to Friday, the Jets their second week, in total free agency was much better than the first. It'll be just me and the pod. Upcoming this week, Charles McDonald, Mike Renner, and another guest as well. So it'll be a packed feed. Obviously, Badlands feed is bumping there. I was out in San Francisco this week. Did not get to the Badlands meetup on Thursday night, but obviously a lot of exciting stuff in the works. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that. Obviously, I want to hit on a couple things here. This will be a quick 10, 15 minutes. I want to hit on the Clowney visit, what he could potentially mean. I want to hit a little bit on Mike Williams and that signing, and then just kind of some of the narratives, I guess, a little bit around the Jets right now in terms of, what could be next in terms of the draft. And, as well, just, as much as hype there was last offseason from the national media, the kind of opposite thing that's happening at the moment, very much predictable. So I'll start with Mike Williams. I did the spaces right after the signing, and a lot of folks, hopped in there, which was great. I know Joe and Connor had the breakdown of it. I've talked a lot about it. I've tweeted a lot about it. I thought he'd be a really, really solid move. The money came out today. It's really 1 for 8, 1 for 9. Pretty much fully guaranteed. The rest, about $6 million or so. An upside in terms of games played. There'll be some statistic targets, etc. Very much in line with what you would expect from the Jets, right? Williams is a guy, really good player. 2 years ago was fantastic. Last year was off to an incredible start. I shared some of the kind of the deep analytics, but those first 3 games he was spectacular. And then obviously tears his ACL. He'll be ready for week 1. He'll probably take a little time to get up and running. That's just the way things work, especially during camp, OTAs, things like that. We'll see how much he's kind of does. I wondered if it'll be a little different than Breece Hall, but who was a little bit later in the year last year, but kind of think it'll be a little bit similar in terms of, probably not practicing much at all in the beginning of camp and slowly start to ramp up. By the time they do those second joint practices, I think you'll start to see Mike Williams pretty much fully integrated into what things are doing, probably on a pitch count early. Doubt we'll see him in the preseason. But week 1, I think it's reasonable to expect him to be ready to go. And he seems to think he'll be ready to go. So, that's from a Mike Williams perspective. Look, I think it opens up their offseason a lot. I talked about this 2 weeks ago. I talked a little bit about this on TOJ Talks, last weekend, of just what signing Tyron Smith and honestly signing Mike Williams would do for the Jets in terms of opening up their draft. It opens up the rest of their offseason where they've taken care of surface level needs, right? We thought they needed multiple pass catchers. They still need another one, but needing one more going into the second wave of free agency in the draft is a lot better than needing 2. We thought they needed 3 offensive linemen, really 4 or 5, including depth. Well, they've signed 3 already. So now you go into the draft, and maybe it's you're drafting for depth. Maybe it's you're drafting for a starter. There's that. I think on defense, they've taken care of some needs. I do still think they probably are still a defensive tackle short. They're definitely an edge rusher short, and they're probably a safety short. So, we'll see there as well. They took care of backup quarterback, obviously. Again, 3 starters in the offensive line, a backup quarterback. They still need to add, on special teams. They took care of all those guys except Justin Hardy at the moment. That's something they need to take care of as well. But generally speaking, the way signing Mike Williams it opens up Garrett Wilson. It opens up the Jets playbook a little bit. Should help a ton in the red zone. Rodgers is a guy who does like to take some shots vertically, towards the sideline, throw a bunch of deep balls, throw some of those seam routes, those cover 2 hole shots. And Mike Williams goes up and gets it better than probably anybody, in the league. Him and T. Higgins are the 2 guys. I think if I was an NFL GM saying who's the best 50-50 guys, this, really the 70-30, type of players, Mike Williams is he's 1 of 1 or 1 of 2, and him and T. Higgins. So, again, if he's healthy, he's a guy that, Joe and Connor talked a little bit about this, but he's hurt a lot, but plays pretty much always. I know that sounds weird, but I think he missed 7 games over a 5-year stretch. That's pretty impressive no matter who you are. At this point in the NFL with just some of the injuries, he's always going to be on the injury report this year. Get used to Mike Williams questionable, Tyron Smith questionable. Those guys are not going to practice a ton. I'm sure, I think Connor and Joe mentioned this as well, just having a plan for these guys in terms of kind of the sports science side of things, in terms of, the rehab, getting them, ready to go each week. That said, again, I don't expect Mike Williams to be full Mike Williams week 1, but the Jets don't need him to be full Mike Williams week 1. They need him to be, kind of like we talked about last year with Brees a little bit. Can the second half of the year, can you be your best version of yourself and at least be out there, whether it's as a decoy? Obviously, Brees came back and was fantastic, start the year. Obviously, though, we're still recovering from the knee. We'll see with Williams, but he'll, again, primary guy that will play outside, going to block well, big target. He's really well liked. I talked to some people in the Chargers organization this week that basically just said, great player. We didn't want to lose him. Great guy. But because of the cap situation, the Chargers had to make a choice. And, they let go of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, obviously. And I think both the Bears and Jets should be excited about the players they're getting, in terms of that. So there's the Mike Williams kind of, talking point there. Jadeveon Clowney, obviously in for a visit, had heard it went really well. I'd heard both sides have interest in getting a deal done again, but the money's got to be right. I'd expect something 1 for 8, 1 for 9, with some upside, some incentives around sacks and playing time, et cetera, there. But Jadeveon Clowney takes his time. Again, I recorded on Thursday and Tuesday, and Mike Williams signed about 30 minutes after I recorded. So hopefully that happens again today when I release this in, Saturday afternoon. But I just look at Clowney and 9.5 sacks a year ago. I'm going to be posting out some of his film actually here in a moment. 9.5 sacks, 71 pressures, 20 quarterback hits. Really damn good last year. He's a guy that's mercenary. Wherever he goes, that defense is really good. Baltimore, Cleveland, Tennessee, Houston, wherever it's been over the years. He's a 1-year deal guy. He's well liked. We're a dominant physical force. I think him, JFM, and Jermaine are as physically dominant in terms of the run game as you're going to get in the NFL, obviously with Quinn and Williams as well. Javon Kinlaw is physically super gifted. Can you keep him on the field and things of that nature, keep him locked in? You hope you can and tap into some of that potential. And then obviously Will McDonald's kind of a wild card there and things of that nature. But I think you got to get Clowney done. I think it's something that, in hindsight, yes. Is it the biggest need on the team? No, obviously it's not. But it's something that is sneakily a need, and you're going to need to basically replace 10 plus sacks from Bryce Huff. And Clowney had that last year. He's not the same type of pass rusher. He's not quite as explosive and things like that. He's obviously a 3-down player, which is awesome. And we'll be on a 1-year deal. But yeah, look, I expect the Jets to get Clowney done. I just, unless the Panthers come in with a really strong offer, I think there's that wild card. We kind of, that we talked a little bit about that before. Mike Williams too is Clowney's always chased, some money, and there's no reason he shouldn't. I totally respect it. But at the same time, I think both sides probably would like to get a deal done. I just think it's going to come down to the Panthers come in there and say, hey, we'll give you 1 for 16, whatever it is. There's that possibility. So that's why I don't think everyone's quite as confident. He usually signs like May or June, maybe even in July. Doesn't really like to do OTAs in camp and stuff like that. And again, you can't blame him. If you don't have to do it, a lot of these vet guys, they'll wait. But push comes to shove, I'd probably lean Clowney ends up being a Jet, which would be, again, fill a big need. He will not be I'm sure he would not rock the 24 he rocked last year in Houston, in Baltimore, obviously because of Revis. But so that's Clowney and Mike Williams. I want to finish up, with two things here, kind of two greater thoughts in terms of how the Jets have kind of what they've done so far and how that kind of changes the perspective for the draft. I talked some about this last weekend, but by signing Smith again and Mike Williams, you kind of can do whatever you want at 10. Outside of probably taking your edge rusher, defensive tackle, or corner or quarterback. I think if you went O-line, you stayed put it, Fontenot, maybe it's Fashanu, whoever's there at 10. You stick there, you say, listen, we got our left tackle of the future, or we got our left tackle / guard flexibility in the future. This guy can replace Moses or Smith next year if either one of them walks or even the one of them gets hurt again or whatever it may be. There's that. If it's Fontenot, does he win the job against John Simpson in training camp? Or does, Tyron Smith being banged up, then they do the X1, whatever it may be, does that happen, right? Then, it's a long-term piece. Do the Jets stay put and just draft a receiver? I think very much would be in favor of either drafting a line or receiver. I think that's the way to move, especially in terms of positional value, in terms of short-term and long-term needs. Obviously, you hope Mike Williams has a really good year and you bring him back next year, and it's Mike Williams, Garrett again next year, and this rookie wide receiver. And obviously Lazard's money would come off, and you feel really good about that trio going forward with maybe a Gibson and a Brownlee as your 4 and 5, and you keep drafting guys to kind of supplement those. That'd be great. I get the Brock Bowers argument, and I don't think it's wrong. I kind of personally would rather the Jets be aggressive and move up to 8, move up to go get Rome Dunze. Do they go up to 5 and go get Marvin? Whatever it may be. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that, you you kind of go with the Bengals method of, we have a good enough group up front. We have, some depth there. Maybe, if you drafted a Carter Warren, you hope, can he be your sixth best offensive lineman next year? Is it Wes Schweitzer's your interior, swing guy? We draft a guy in the third round at offensive line, Patrick Paul, maybe potentially at Houston, who's a developmental guy at, a tackle. But can him and Carter Warren and Max Mitchell, can one of the three of them be good enough to step in for 3 games? And help out if Tyron Smith plays only 14, or, can Schweitzer and maybe an interior guy you take in round 3 or round 4 be good enough this year to basically, fill in if AVT misses a game, fill in if Tippmann misses a game, whatever it may be. There's a legitimate argument to be made there. And, a Rome, Mike Williams and Garrett trio is effing incredible. Could be effing incredible, right? Or, is it trading up for a Marv? Is it trading up for Neighbors? Or do you trade back? That's the other situation. You sit there and go, if someone wants to come up for maybe one of the quarterbacks to jump Denver, can you drop back to 16, 17, take one of the offensive linemen, or take a Brian Thomas Jr.? Can you take an AD Mitchell? It's, whoever it may be, a little bit there, Troy Franklin, et cetera. Maybe there, you pick up a second round pick that you use on an offensive lineman, or do you take a tackle there? Maybe it's Fontenot, slips to 16, 17. You take him there and you take a receiver in round 2 with that extra pick. So I think the Jets all options are on the table. I think there should be an offense heavy draft, whether it's offensive line, receiver, potentially taking a running back, as well, just kind of continuing to churn out there. I'd still love to see them make a move on a running back and a safety in the veteran market, whether it's a Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, those type of names, whether it's, Ezekiel Elliott, maybe a J.K. Dobbins. I'd lean Zeke. He's always healthy. He's great in pass pro. He's great on third downs. This guy can run the ball in short yardage. You can spell Breece Hall from having to be everything for you. And Zeke can be productive in spurts. Plus, he's a guy who's well liked as well. So the playoff experience. So that's that. And the last thing I want to hit on here before we wrap, again, shorter episode today. I got episodes Tuesday, Thursday, and then a big TOJ Talks next weekend. This idea of a lot of people getting frustrated with the national media, kind of hating on the Jets a lot and doubting the moves and things like that. The Jets were hyped up a ton last offseason. Everyone was like, the Jets are the sneaky Super Bowl team. Everyone was kind of, all aboard that train. And, obviously things didn't go well last year. 7-10, Rodgers gets hurt, all the different things. All things we know. No one knows it better than Jets fans, obviously. Now it's kind of flipped to the everything, doubting the moves. Oh, that Mike Williams got hurt last year. And it's all these, 2-year statistics to make everyone think, Tyron Smith played a ton of games last year, but no one wants to talk about that. It was a second-team All-Pro. Mike Williams was fantastic in 2021 and then was good in 2022. Didn't really miss a lot of time at all. And then gets hurt on an ACL. And now all of a sudden he's all, they do the 2-year stats with him. Keep people bringing up Breece Hall's injuries. Folks saying Sauce Gardner had the best corner in his class. He's a 2-time first-team All-Pro in 2 years. So respectfully, that's bullshit. You get that, and Rodgers is old. He's not going to be good. All that stuff's getting thrown out there now, right? Because they're doing the opposite of what happened last year. Let people do it. I know it's annoying sometimes. I think everyone has the right to be skeptical about this Jets team. I think there's a lot of questions about the coaching staff. I think there's injury questions, there's age questions, chemistry. I think the offseason is not done yet. We don't know what their third option, at receiver is going to be, or second option, depending on the draft. We don't know, the full scope of their offensive line. We don't know the full scope of what the running back room is going to look like, what the defensive tackle room could potentially would look like, safety, et cetera. So all those reasons are fair. I think this is probably the year where let the Jets go in a little under the radar, getting kind of that unnecessary hate. They're not going to be that good. The Jets usually thrive when that happens, it feels like. And, this is a team, let's start out 6-3, and all of a sudden people are starting to talk, and Rodgers looks pretty good. I think everyone, even rightfully so, I think they're going to probably win the division. I think they could win the division next year. But I've seen 4 plays of Rodgers in a Jets uniform, outside that Giants preseason game. So I think it's right, again, let people be skeptical. It's a good thing. You can go prove them wrong. The Jets start winning football games. Everyone will shut up, and it will start to swing the other way. So, not telling everyone how to root or how to react. It's obviously annoying sometimes. You don't want people talking shit about your favorite team constantly. Totally get it. But in this case, let it happen. Who cares? Tune in to Badlands and tune on the Jets and all that stuff, and get the stuff you actually want to hear. And and we'll go from there. But again, quick 15 today. Make sure you guys are tuned into the feed. The quarter zips are the pre-sale. It looks like they're almost already sold out, which is fantastic. Again, I'll have the Clowney stuff out in a little bit. Make sure you guys are tuned into this. And then again, Charles McDonald, Mike Renner, amongst other folks, coming on the pod this week. We'll talk a lot of draft, a lot of offseason stuff. And obviously, if anything happens with the Clowney or any other move, we'll hop back on. So appreciate everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.